Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you are having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is an entitled People Story. Sometimes life has a way of teaching us valuable lessons, and in my case, it came in the form of a peculiar neighbor and an unexpected inheritance. Let me take you back to when my world took an intriguing turn. I've always been a city person, thriving in the hustle and bustle. But when fate handed me my late grandfather's sprawling farmhouse on a vast 60-acre plot, I found myself torn between the charm of the countryside and my urban lifestyle. Besides, my hectic work schedule left me with little time to manage an additional property. Determined to sell the farmhouse, I enlisted the help of a real estate agent and embarked on the journey of finding a suitable buyer. I wasn't looking to make a fortune. All I wanted was a fair price for the place. And soon enough, an offer arrived that seemed reasonable and acceptable to me. Just as I was finalizing the details, a strange letter arrived in the mail. It bore the name of an attorney, supposedly representing my neighbor, who accused me of selling the property below market value and threatened to sue me. Confusion and frustration set in as I grappled with the absurdity of the situation. How could someone sue me for selling my own property at a price I deemed fair? Seeking guidance, I consulted a friend who connected me with an attorney named Patrick. He assured me that this was an unusual and baseless claim. After a thorough investigation, Patrick discovered that the letter was nothing more than a forgery, an attempt to intimidate me. Armed with this information, I decided to confront my neighbor directly. As I approached his pristine home, I couldn't help but notice the meticulous care he invested in his property. A middle-aged man with average features, he greeted me with simmering anger. Unleashing a tirade of unsolicited vitriol, he revealed his disdain for people he considered beneath him, including families and children. His hateful words resonated deeply within me, fueling my determination to make an even bigger statement. After leaving him with the attorney's letter, I indulged in a reflective evening, accompanied by my feline companion and a few drinks. It was during that tipsy state of mind that a friend's suggestion illuminated my path forward. Donating the farmhouse and the land to an orphanage presented itself as the perfect solution. Not only would it serve as a remarkable tax write-off, but it would also benefit an institution in dire need of repair. Enthusiastic about this plan, I reached out to my real estate agent and attorney, and together we orchestrated the donation. While I felt a tinge of guilt for reneging on the initial offer, the buyer understood and supported my decision. The anticipation of the neighbor's reaction heightened my excitement, and sure enough, it wasn't long before he discovered what I had done. He tracked down my city address and confronted me, attempting to intimidate me once more. But this time he was met with an unexpected ally. My neighbor, a small, elderly woman who rarely expressed discontent. Her fiery spirit flared as she reprimanded him, declaring that heartless individuals like him didn't deserve happiness or wealth. In a moment of poetic justice, she suggested he donate all his money to the orphanage, serving as retribution for his callousness. With his ego deflated and his confidence shattered, the disgruntled neighbor retreated, defeated by the unified voice of justice and compassion. However, fate had more in store for him. Unable to bear the presence of the orphanage next door, he decided to leave, abandoning his beautiful home and meticulously manicured yard. The irony was palpable. His material possessions couldn't compensate for the hollowness within his heart. And so the farmhouse became a sanctuary for the orphans, a place where love and laughter replaced neglect and sadness. The once imposing structure, now renovated and brimming with life, stood as a testament to the power of kindness and the triumph of the human spirit. Update. Years have passed since those events unfolded, and the farmhouse has flourished as a cherished home for countless children. The orphanage expanded its reach, touching the lives of even more young souls in need. As for me, the experience transformed my perspective on life and ignited a passion for philanthropy. Embracing the lessons learned, I dedicated myself to supporting various charitable causes. I became an advocate for underprivileged children, actively participating in fundraising events and volunteering at local shelters. The impact of that fateful decision reverberated far beyond the confines of the farmhouse, inspiring others to find their own unique ways to make a difference. In the end, the neighbor's selfishness and hostility unwittingly triggered a wave of compassion and change. And though he vanished from our lives, his actions left an indelible mark, reminding us of the power we all possess to reshape the world, one act of kindness at a time. The next one is a pro-revenge story. So, I used to work at this restaurant in downtown city. Terrible job experience, but it was a job. One day we got slammed. Usually it's because of a game night since this burger place is right behind a baseball field, but this day was different. First of all, I was already pissed. A coworker who thought he was the manager showed up an hour late, so I had to open the entire front of the restaurant alone within 30 minutes because people were already waiting in the parking lot. The coworker shows up and I don't say a word to him. Oh well, move on with the day. The day goes on, and I come in for my shift. Soccer teams come over after a tournament. I'm talking about 100 players with a line out the door. On shifts like this, some of the kitchen staff had to drop everything and help the other front of house employees, including myself, deliver orders because we're taking orders, cleaning tables, putting orders together, delivering them, serving drinks. I did this when I was 18, and making milkshakes. Customers were great. All of the players that came in were so nice, and we had no issues, no impatience, no complaints, nothing. Just a nice day. They tipped us nicely as well, so we really appreciated that. I should probably mention at this point that we take DoorDash orders, which is where Karen comes in. For those of you who don't know, DoorDashers are people who are paid by a customer to go get food from a restaurant and bring it to them. We get into our usual rush, and 3 other coworkers and I are obviously multitasking and rushing to keep everyone happy. The DoorDash tablet goes off. I confirm it and start prepping the order. Mind you, this includes a milkshake. I'm not going to go ahead and make the milkshake, because God only knows when this woman is going to show up. The rest of the order is ready to go, and she shows up while we're helping other customers. Let me tell you about this woman. By definition, a Karen. She had the typical Karen cut with the eyes of a freaking White Walker. I'm talking bright blue eyes, obviously fake because they were Twitter logo blue and almost solid, that peer into your soul in a split second. I swear I saw the gates of hell in her eyes. So I'm just going to call her Karen. She starts getting impatient and asks me how much longer it'll be. I apologize and tell her that it won't be much longer, and I go to start the milkshake. She starts flipping out at my coworkers, and as I'm passing her to get the rest of the DoorDash order, she starts laying it on me, screaming at me because I didn't have the milkshake ready and that I was costing her tips. The woman was wearing Lululemon yoga pants and had expensive colored contacts in. She would be fine without $3. The sort of manager comes out to talk to her. Let's call him C. C comes out and explains the situation. She doesn't accept what he's saying and starts screaming in front of 200 people about how she won't get tips and how hard is it to make one milkshake. Karen gives us the typical, I want to speak to the manager, and the manager just so happens to be C. He tells her he is the manager. He asks her to leave, and she continues her rant, calling C a coward about 5 or 6 times. Karen finally leaves. I'm fuming about this lunatic coming in and making everyone uncomfortable, so I do a little digging. Turns out, if you go onto the tablet, you can find the previous DoorDashers who come into the restaurant to get orders. I remember the name of the customer who ordered, so I go onto the tablet to find the DoorDasher's name. I find her name and cell phone number on the order history and information. I get in contact with the DoorDash company and explain the harassment we endured from Karen and give them her name and contact number, saying she was from Redacted City. They tell me they'll look into it. They contacted me later and informed me that it was taken care of and we never saw her again as she regularly took orders from us. We all went on our merry way and occasionally called each other cowards as our own little inside joke. The next one is a petty revenge story. This is the story of a casino Karen. Before we begin, a few things to know. The house always wins. Duh. Casino Karens are slightly different from regular Karens. First, they must win immediately upon sitting down at a slot machine and get very angry when they do not. Second, if you are winning and they are not, Casino Karens are even more unhappy. So last night late in the evening at a nearby casino, I was meandering my way back to my hotel room after breaking even for the night. Yay. I stopped at a penny slot machine I like, and decided to throw in a few bucks and play the minimum of 25 cents per spin, just for craps and giggles. Shortly after sitting down, Casino Karen plops down at a slot machine 2 over from me, which I know is generally not a great machine. I never see anyone really win on it, and it is not played much as a result, and immediately lights up a cigarette while her boyfriend stands there to watch her. After a few spins at $1.25 a spin, she immediately starts complaining, and her boyfriend joins her saying, "These machines are rigged! This is awful!" I see why the casino regulars play the minimum. Now normally I am happy to see others winning because it makes the vibe more fun, but with Karens, no, I hope they lose. So it just so happens that around the time Karen starts complaining, I get a bonus. This pisses off Karen and her boyfriend. and I hear them make a snide comment about how of course I am in the bonus and only playing 25 cents. Idiot, you know I can hear you, right? Karen then gets a bonus on her machine too, with 40 free spins, but only wins about $11, which is about what I got on my bonus playing 25 cents to her $1.25. You would have thought the world had stopped. The complaining ramped up about 10 more notches, and they kept idioting about 40 free spins and barely $10. So, karmic fates shine down, and my machine decides to bonus several more times in very quick succession. Cue even more complaints. I try to be nice and tell them that I played it earlier at $1.25 a spin and couldn't get a bonus to save my life. Isn't that how it goes? I get in the bonus at minimum bet. Silence from Karen and her boyfriend. Okay, that's how it is going to go. I was already irritated at the snide remark. Casino Karen proceeds to continue her non-stop complaining. Normal people just get up off a bad machine, and I can tell she is eyeing my machine, ready to jump at the chance to get on it if I leave. I've been gambling for a long time. I know when someone wants my machine. Despite being tired, part 1 of Petty Revenge is I decide to keep playing just to annoy her, and I managed to hit a $50 bonus, which, as you can imagine, irritated her since it would have been $250 if I was playing $1.25 like her. About 3 Karen cigarettes later, she finally leaves, but only goes about 7. 8 machines down. I can tell her boyfriend keeps looking my way to see if I have left. Part 2 of Petty Revenge is I pull out a ticket I haven't cashed in yet from another machine that has about $250 in slot credits on it, and I insert it into my machine. This way, it looks like I won a really big bonus if they walk by to see how I am doing and how many credits are on my machine. Of course, about 15 minutes later, they stroll by, and I can tell they are super annoyed to see that I have over $350 in credits on the machine. Ha 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 ha. Once it was clear they were gone for good, I cashed out and went to bed. The next one is a malicious compliance story. I used to work in a training center for a Fortune 500 company. When class wasn't in session, the building normally only had 4 people in it. Me, trainee, the boss, and the 2 trainers. I called in sick 2 days in a row because I had a nasty lung infection. On the second day, the boss starts ranting at me about how kids these days have no discipline, and I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years. I tried asking if he wanted me to get a doctor's note, but he was pretty adamant about me coming in the next day. He said that he can decide if I'm actually sick and he can send me home. I was one of the few women working in that section of the company, less than half everyone's age, and felt like arguing with him about it was a bad idea. Cue malicious compliance. That next morning, I decide not to pump myself full of cold meds and just go in, raw dogging life. As soon as I walk in the door, the trainers look at me and I say, "I'm very sick, might want to give me a wide berth." They looked at me wide-eyed, nodded, and went to a different section of the building. The boss hears me coughing so hard that I'm having to do that gasp for air like I just emerged from the depths. He walks in and goes, "Oh, you really are sick. You should go home, but I don't understand how you got this sick," and then reminds me, I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years. So I drive home and come back the next day. The trainers look at me and say, "What the hell are you doing here?" Me. The boss said that if I'm actually sick, he can send me home. They laughed and avoided my section of the building. The boss once again hears me coughing and gasping for air and comes in and dismisses me, and this time tells me that he doesn't need more proof. I can come back when I feel better. 4 days later, Mr. I haven't taken a sick day in 9 years, was sick with some nasty lung nonsense and was out for a week. If only he had more discipline. The next one is an entitled people story. This happened last October 1st, the morning of my daughter's wedding. Had I not been in a hurry to get to the venue, things may have played out differently. I will never know. I was there to buy distilled water for the steamer needed to steam her dress and the bridesmaids' dresses. Time was of the essence. I was patiently waiting in line with an elderly couple finishing up in front of me. The woman was standing in front of the CC payment terminal, and the cart was after her. Her husband was at the end of the cart, bagging groceries. The cashier mentioned she would bag his items, and he cheerfully replied he had done it for years for a living and didn't mind. His wife laughed and said he liked helping out. I was in line, as I mentioned, and I had my debit card ready in my hand. I smiled and chimed in on the conversation. I tend to talk with my hands, so as we were all chatting, I was waving my right hand in the air. My hand was visible the entire time. Suddenly I was shoved hard from behind. I was pushed into the little old lady, and she in turn shoved the cart into her husband. My first thought was someone tripped and fell into me. I recovered and looked behind me to see this elderly man, hair sticking straight up, mask below his nose, glaring at me while he slammed items onto the conveyor belt. The conversation went like this. Me, can I help you? EP, I shoved you because you shoved her, and I'm not about to let you shove me, so I beat you to the punch, ha ha ha. He's yelling this at me, pulling his mask down and leaning into my face. Idiot. I could feel myself getting hot all over. I don't like confrontation, but he actually hurt my shoulder. I have fibromyalgia, and a simple hug can be excruciating. Meanwhile, the old couple in front of me just booked it out of there. I never got to apologize to the woman or her husband. Me, I didn't touch her. Meanwhile, the cashier is ignoring this and quietly rings up my distilled water. EP, I saw you shove her, so I beat you to the punch. You people today are all the same. Then he gestures to my gallon of distilled water. Have you ever heard of a faucet? You're what's wrong with the world. Drinking fancy water when you can drink out of a hose. You are stupid. He kept yelling at me, but I just closed off and could hear the sound but no longer make out the words. I think I went into mild shock. I wanted to scream at this man and defend myself, but at the same time, why should I defend why I'm buying a damned gallon of distilled water? He shoved me and had absolutely no right to. I thought maybe the cashier would say, "Hey sir, settle down," or something. She said nothing. I was robotically swiping my debit card and just thinking, I have to get to my daughter. She gets married today. I have to get to my daughter. She is waiting. I have to get to my daughter. I grabbed my water and made a hasty exit. As I was leaving, I heard him say to the cashier, "Where did you get that shirt? It's ugly. I have seen better shirts in the trash. Do you know how stupid you look?" She replied, "I like this shirt. I am ready for Halloween." It was a shirt with the upper part of a skeleton, ribs, sternum, etc. He just kept on and she ignored him. It was then I realized this was a disturbed, possibly senile old guy. But still, I needed to get to my car. I was on the verge of tears, which happens when I get angry. I got to my car, locked the doors, and began to shake. Then I couldn't stop. I burst into tears and shook uncontrollably for about 5 minutes. That's when it hit me. I was assaulted. And I did nothing. I froze. I was victimized mildly, but I cannot imagine how women recover from more violent assaults, and I have deep respect for those who can. My shoulder was on fire. Absolutely no employee in that store came to my defense. I drove to my daughter's venue, still in shock. After the wedding, hours later, I am in the shower. My husband comes in, and I have a bruise the size of a tennis ball on my left shoulder area. He inquired, and when I explained, white-hot rage went through this man. My giant of a husband would have never allowed that man to do what he did. Had he been there, we most likely would have been delayed by the police, so I am grateful that didn't happen. I think about it all the time. I wish I had defended myself. I wish the cashier had called security. I wish I had not crawled inside myself and shut down the way I did. To anyone who has survived assault, you are brave. You matter. You did not deserve it. You are a survivor. Mine was a rough shove, and I still shake when I think about it. The next one is an entitled parent story. My brother and sister-in-law are extremely irresponsible with money to the point that they have already been bankrupt twice and are working on their third bankruptcy. It just hasn't been enough years since the last time. They both owe over $150,000 in student loans and credit cards. Additionally, they owe more on their home than it's worth because they take out every cent of equity they gain immediately, claiming they will use it to pay off debt, but instead, they spend it on impulsive luxury purchases. They have 3 kids. The oldest is 18 and in college. I just found out that they took out massive student loans in the kid's name exclusively, far beyond what was necessary, and they spent the money on themselves. Last summer, they even scammed the kid out of her life savings by buying her a car, but they pulled a switch on her by purchasing a manual transmission car that she doesn't know how to drive. I know they did it on purpose because my brother wanted the new car for himself. He thought it was a fair trade to give her the old beat-up, ugly minivan instead. But they didn't give her the money she contributed for the new car back. The in-laws set up a college fund for her when she was a small child, and instead of receiving gifts during holidays, they put money into it. When it was time to use the money, she discovered it was all gone. They spent it all without her knowledge, and she only found out when she needed it. I just found out that they got her deeply into student loan debt, far beyond what she needed, and she hasn't even started her second year yet. They thought Biden was going to forgive $20,000, so they recklessly spent through it, thinking it was free money. This poor kid has no idea of the magnitude of what they have done to her in the long term. They messed up their own lives and finances irreparably and couldn't resist taking advantage of their own child, burdening her with a debt she will never be able to pay off. She will be struggling for the rest of her life. The career path she is pursuing does not offer high earning potential, so she will already face difficulties supporting herself after college. I don't think she knows the extent of the debt being racked up in her name, and if she decides to quit school or choose another path, she will still be stuck with a huge payment. Tuition is super cheap since she stayed in state, so they could have easily paid out of pocket and avoided putting her in the same situation they are in. I am disgusted by the level of entitlement they have, to literally rob their own child of every cent she had, which wasn't much to begin with. Then they sentenced her to a lifetime of massive debt on top of it. Also, they can continue spending frivolously on eating out every meal, new tech gadgets, trips, 2 new cars for themselves, clothes, home decor, and so on. They owe my parents tens of thousands for all the bailouts they received to save their house from foreclosure several times. It would take all day to go over all the rotten, greedy, entitled things they do, but screwing over your own child is on another level, and they have 2 more kids who they will likely take advantage of in the future. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.